167 combat engagements were recorded by the General Staff of the AFU on the front over the past day. The most intense situation is in the Pokrovsk direction. There, the enemy attacked the positions of the defense forces 36 times. On the Kostiantynivka section of the front, there were 23 assaults by the Russian army, and another 20 attacks were recorded in the Huliai-Pol direction. 13 times Russian occupiers tried to break through the defenses on the Sloviansk bridgehead. The AFU crushed the elite unit of the Russian army, Oplot, near Pokrovsk. Due to critical, irreversible losses, the Russian command was forced to withdraw the remaining part of the 2nd Battalion of the 5th Motorized Rifle Brigade from the combat zone. A crushing blow was dealt to the enemy by the soldiers of the 79th Air Assault Brigade. They remember their opponent well from as far back as 2014. Back then, Ukrainian paratroopers faced this unit during the defense of the Donetsk airport. 760 Russian soldiers were eliminated by the defense forces of Ukraine over the past day, and the total losses of the Russian army have already exceeded 1,279,000 people. Also, the AFU destroyed 2 armored vehicles, 19 artillery systems, 1 MLRs, and 1 air defense system, as well as 113 units of the enemy's automotive and special equipment. A Russian strike on the hydroelectric power plant in Ukrainian Novodnistrovsk has threatened Moldova's water supply due to large-scale pollution of the Dniester. Currently, there is no risk for water consumers in Chisinau. The water is suitable for drinking and cooking. Nevertheless, the authorities still recommend that residents stock up on water. This was stated by the Minister of Environment of Moldova, Sergiu Lazarencu. Earlier, the country's president, Maia Sandu, blamed Russia for the emergency situation. Moldovan authorities declared an environmental alert in the Dniester River basin for 15 days and are taking measures to protect citizens. In several settlements, the water supply has been temporarily restricted.
As a result of the Russian strike on the hydroelectric power plant in Ukrainian Novodnistrovsk, oil entered the Dniester River, which created a threat to Moldova's water supply. We have declared an environmental alert and are applying measures to protect our citizens. Russia bears full responsibility for this. Maia Sandu, President of Moldova, on the social network X.
And now a topic for more detailed discussion. So, the foreign ministers of the European Union in Brussels are discussing Russian aggression against Ukraine. And the focus is on a 90 billion euro loan, pressure on Moscow, and the abuse of the veto power by Hungary in matters concerning Ukraine. Special correspondent of the Freedom TV channel in Europe, Vitaly Sizov, will tell us more.
Aid to Ukraine remains a priority for the European Union. European officials and foreign ministers urge not to lose sight of Russian aggression, despite the events in Iran and its conflict with the United States of America. It is necessary to help the Ukrainian economy and army because attempts by some European countries to establish a connection with Moscow so that Europe could get its place at the negotiating table have not led to success.
It's not surprising. Russia has shown that it doesn't actually want to negotiate. In fact, it's intensifying its attacks on Ukraine because it wants to achieve its maximalist goals. And that's why Europeans aren't ready to satisfy these maximalist demands. Then, of course, why would they talk to us? Our approach must be to increase the pressure. And so it's very important to increase pressure through an oil price cap. It's also necessary to use the 20th sanctions package against the shadow fleet and provide Ukraine with a 90 billion euro loan. All this is vital for us to pressure Russia, so it moves from feigned readiness to real negotiations.
Lithuanian Foreign Minister Kęstutis Budrys called for a ban on entry into the European Union for Russian combatants who fought against Ukraine. In addition, he outlined the main priorities for the European Union regarding Ukraine.
First, it's the 90 billion euro support package for Ukraine. Second, it's the 20th sanctions package. And third, it's the ongoing exploitation and manipulation by Hungary using its veto power. We must also address this problem directly. We can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed by this at all. And we can't allow European instruments and tools to be used for internal political processes, whether elections or anything else. Therefore, in solving this problem, we must pressure Hungary to change its position, not the other way around.
The new Dutch government formed after the recent elections is not going to change course on Ukraine at this time. The country's new foreign minister, Tom Berendsen, supported the swift adoption of the 20th sanctions package against Russia.
We hope for a quick decision, but I don't foresee a resolution on this issue today. However, in the interest of the Netherlands, we are continuing to try to keep pressuring Hungary to agree to the package, because we firmly believe that pressuring Russia is essentially the most important thing we can possibly do.
In parallel, a meeting of EU energy ministers is taking place in Brussels, joined by Ukrainian Minister Denis Shmyhal. The main topic for Ukraine is mutual energy security and the integration of energy systems. including the useful example of Ukraine and Moldova. Ministers are also discussing the operation of the Druzhba pipeline. In Brussels at this level, they emphasize that there's no talk of easing sanctions against Moscow.
We in Europe cannot directly help finance Russia's brutal and illegal war, and we've depended on their energy for too long, allowing Putin to blackmail us and use energy against us. We are determined to stay on the right track in these matters. It would be a mistake to repeat what we have done in the past. So the signal is very clear. In the future, we will not import a single molecule from Russia.
The European Union is nearing the adoption of the 20th package of sanctions against Russia and will not reduce pressure due to rising energy prices. Brussels is also finalizing work on a 90 billion loan and aims to provide it as quickly as possible. Vitaly Sizov, Ruslan Kuskov from Brussels for the Freedom TV channel.
Today marks exactly 4 years since the Mariupol tragedy. On March 16, 2022, Russian aviation struck the drama theater in Mariupol, Donetsk region, with an aerial bomb. During the attack, more than 1,000 residents were hiding there from Russian shelling. On the square in front of the theater building, the word children was written in large white letters. As a result of the strike, according to various estimates, up to 600 people died. The exact number of victims is unknown as Mariupol is under Russian occupation and the aggressor is hiding this data. The memory of those killed by Russian strikes on the drama theater in Mariupol was honored in Italy. A flash mob called Souls of Mariupol took place in Milan. Participants recreated the word children, and at the end, they released 200 white balloons in memory of the victims. The initiative was organized by Ukrainian and Italian public organizations. The location in Milan was not chosen by chance. The Milan Theatre is one of the main cultural venues in Europe, and just as it was for the people of Mariupol, their drama theatre was a spiritual center.